From the Smith Center in Chapel Hill, this is TarHillIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me as he always does, our very own publisher Andrew Jones. And Andrew, here outside the Smith Center, we just got to watch Carolina's second practice of the season, first open practice to the media so far. First time getting to see Hubert Davis in action since he's taken over as the new head coach of the Tar Heels, and a lot of talking points, a lot of things that we got to pick up, even got to film a little bit of footage from the first 20 minutes. We'll have a video out on our YouTube channel on that as well. But I just thought it was a cool experience to finally get out here, see some guys in person, be around the program again in person, which has been something we haven't been able to do in a while. And not to mention, you got a brand new coach like Hubert, like I mentioned, coming in as well, just to see how he worked and everything. That was the coolest part.
That was the best part.
Definitely. So
because that's the newest part.
Yeah, the newest part, the coolest part, and you've obviously got a very new looking team in a lot of ways as well. Some returning guys, but a lot of new faces out there we got to see. So before we dive into it a little bit more, what was your kind of overall takeaways, or first initial takeaways from practice today?
Well, they didn't show us everything.
Yeah,
they're not going to show us because it's they have 41 days till they have their opener against New Orleans.
Yeah, a lot of time.
So this is a brick by brick thing. So they're phasing stuff in. I think that what was interesting today is it was almost dominated by defense and communication on defense.
Yeah.
And what's funny is that none of us have asked a question during any of the Zooms about defense. We all want to know about the offense and the spread and Biggs doing this and Caleb not turning the ball over and all that kind of stuff. But you got to win defense. You got to play defense to win games. And I think that had we not been doing everything on Zoom, and we talked about this just a minute ago before we started filming, if it were the regular media were around in person more and we had chances to ask multiple questions each, I do think defensive questions would have come up.
Yeah, 100%.
The beautiful thing about now that we've seen it and we've got a hold of some of Hubert's buzzwords is next time we talk to Hubert, we can ask about a sense of emergency.
Yeah, we thought he was like just messing the saying up for a second, but then it was like,
sense of emergency, and this to me is my number one takeaway. And I have 1,000 takeaways, and they will be on our site. In fact, a lot of them are already on a thread. I was posting observations in a thread. I'm going to add to it more once we finish this video, and that'll be on our site. And you got to be a premium member to access it. By the way, it's just $8.33 a month.
Sign up.
Cheap, shameless plug. To me, it was the communication demand on defense and how it was coached. Hubert allows his assistants to coach, but when he had to step in, he stepped in.
Yeah.
And we'll get to that in a minute. We'll talk more about Hubert, isolate him in a second. But I really enjoyed watching. They went from two-man defensive communication, talking about the screen coming up and whether or not you're going to switch, all that kind of stuff. And then they morphed it into a five-man thing. And it was really interesting to see that there was a lot of communication. And what came from this is the demand of communication. That was the sense of emergency, right? I talked to a few guys who covered Oklahoma after Brady Manick committed, and they said that Brady doesn't play defense. And he sure as hell doesn't communicate on defense, right? The loudest guy here, and we've got Brandon P. and in
the background over here.
Exactly. Noah Stabrowski over here, who part of THI. And what did we say, guys? Brady Manick was the loudest guy on defense communicating. So that was a really neat thing to see. It's a demand of the program. They're smiling over there right now. But it was. Brady was so loud you could have heard him out here. And I thought that was pretty cool. Beard, hair, all that kind of stuff. And he's just loud.
Yeah.
And we were told that he wasn't. So the demand of the program is what Hubert is communicating to these kids. And I think that that's an interesting thing that we got to see it firsthand on day number 2. And there'll be some more things we'll talk about here in a second. But that's my primary takeaway.
Yeah.
Defensive communication and Hubert's communication. It stops something and he can chew. And we're going to talk about that in a second, but he can chew. Everyone was worried about that. He can chew.
Yeah, definitely. And that transitions to what I want to talk about next, focusing on Hubert. Because
I embarrassed them.
You get him on camera over here. But Hubert's obviously what people we're going to hear about. It's going to be the biggest thing that we're going to take away from today, because it was finally getting to see him in action. And a couple of things that stood out to me, and I'll let you hit on it afterwards. I'm sure you'll agree. You've already hit on it a little bit. But I thought delegating to his coaches was something that we didn't see a lot with Roy. And granted, we didn't get to see a lot of open practices with Roy. I mean, very limited. But one thing you noticed about Roy practices is when it really got into the meat of the practice, it was Roy kind of running the show. Now, beforehand, when you're doing kind of shoot around and stuff like that, some other coaches might come in or half-court stuff with big men and guards. But I thought there was a couple times when Hubert's coaching the guys, and he's like, hey, Sean, come over here and go talk to them. And let Sean step in. Yeah. Or let Coach Lebo step in and say something, which is something from the limited practices, like I said, we saw of Roy, was something we didn't see a lot. Now, second thing I thought was interesting about Hubert was coaching style. I mean, if we talk about Hubert being this nice guy, this mantra that he gets, and he is a nice guy on the outside looking in, of course he is. But trust me, guys, from what we saw today, when Hubert gets mad, he gets mad and he'll let you know. And you'd expect that with every coach. I mean, in order to be a coach, you have to have that side of your coaching style as well. But those were the two biggest things I think that stood out to me. Anything in particular about Hubert besides that?
Let me comment on that. In fairness, we didn't get to see a lot of Roy's practices. I mean, I saw snippets of them and the open practices before, NCAA tournament. He's not going to show much then. So I know there was a lot of delegation as well. But it was the way it was delegated, the way they broke out into groups. We're just seeing his style for the first time.
Yeah.
So all these things are new, and it's interesting to see how he did it. But yeah, when Hubert wanted to stop practice and make a point, he made his point. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have said on our boards, and I've had people send me text messages, emails, and DMs, and all kinds of stuff. Hey, man, I'm really concerned. Hubert's such a nice guy. I mean, is he going to be able to get on a guy when he messes up, or he's just going to hug him to death and cry with him over the mistake? I mean, I've had people ask me that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
He got him.
Yeah, no, we saw it.
And it was interesting. Ariel Bonham was walking out with us, and Ariel, who covered Dean Smith some as well, he said, that was a lot like Dean. Hubert was able to emphatically make a point without ever cussing.
Yeah, I don't think he said a cuss word.
I didn't hear one.
No.
But, I thought at one point...
Better man than me.
If we say something to you, it's yes, sir, or yes, coach.
Yeah.
We know more than you. I mean, he was emphasizing to the kids, you do not know the game like we know the game. And I think that being surrounded by Pat Sullivan, who played 3 Final Fours, and Brandon, and Brandon, who just played here a couple years ago, and you got Sean out there, and you got Brad out there. Brad was in a Final Four. We looked at a picture of him in the hallway. I showed them back when Brad Frederick had hair. I mean, they're surrounded by Carolina. Eddie Fogler was in the stands.
Yep.
I mean, this is Carolina basketball, and it was coming out of their pores when you were in there, and Hubert is communicating to them. He even said at one point about the banner, he said, look, if you want to win in the NCAAs, you don't make that mistake. It is all about being Carolina, and that was communicated on a very, very high level. Defensive communication was vital under Roy, it was vital under Dean, and it was vital today. So people love to talk about Caleb shooting from 3 and Armando being able to step away and hitting shots from 15 and putting the ball on the floor. We saw all that stuff. Mm-hmm. But you're not going to win unless you do that other stuff. Mm-hmm. And day number 2 of the 2021-22 season was all about the other stuff. And I think that when you point out that all that laundry's up there because of that stuff, the less glamorous stuff that people don't see. That's what today was all about, and I'm glad they showed that to us.
Yeah.
I'm glad it wasn't a run and gun, fast break Jill, figure 8 dunk fest. I'm glad it was this, because this is what's going to win on the road.
Yeah, 100%.
This is what's going to win in March on a neutral court when you're not shooting well, like in the Gonzaga game. This is the crap that got you past Gonzaga on that Monday night in Phoenix, and that's what they were working on today, and I thought that was impressive.
Last thing I want to touch on before we wrap this one up, let's talk about some players that maybe stood out. We obviously got to see them, haven't talked about them too much. I thought one guy that looked really solid today was Justin Mccoy. We talked about him having a pretty shot. He also had the dunk in the 3-man weave drill they were doing. I don't know who he dunked on, but he absolutely dunked on
spring that we didn't see in
I was like, man, it's a
Charlottesville.
3-man drill right here. I didn't know you could dunk on people in this. Great dunk by him. I thought, like you said, his stroke
I
looked
just
good.
finished saying, we didn't get off on all the dunk stuff, and you're talking dunks.
I'm telling you, man.
But it was Justin McCoy dunk, so that one's...
I think that was probably the play of the day, if you will. Not that we saw a lot of live action stuff or anything where guys were dunking on him.
Although I really like Puff's floater right before he injured himself.
Yeah.
He was gliding for about 6 feet. He left here, released there, and it was a smooth glide.
Oh, 100%. I thought, a couple other guys that stood out. We talked a little bit about Armando. It looked even a little bit bigger, a little bit better. Yeah, a little bit more solid down there.
More fluid.
A little more fluid in his game, which I think is a plus for them. You talked about Brady Manick being a loud communicator on the defensive side of the ball. Big kid. I mean, the first time we've actually got to see him in person. Solid. Big time shooting. When you got a guy like that who can step out and hit threes, I mean, that's just a plus. I mean, there's a ton of guys that stood out because we haven't seen these guys in person really in a long time.
From a distance. And
exactly.
we got a chance to go on the court.
Which is a whole new experience.
If you consider the stretching and Hubert's 9-minute speech, which I thought was cool.
Yeah, it was cool.
He was addressing a lot of stuff. We got a chance to actually stay down there about 45 minutes on the court, and I was standing almost right underneath the basket when Garcia was shooting. He's a big man.
Yeah, Garcia as well.
He's a big dude, and he's well proportioned. But what really struck me about him, and I posted this on our thread, is they were doing 5-on-5 stuff, working on the defensive communication on one side. There were 4 guys on the other side with Brad Frederick working on ball handling drills. And Garcia was flawless with the ball handling. And they were dribbling at the different times and then crossing over and stuff like that. If you went to camp, or if you played in high school, you kind of understand some of the drills I'm talking about. But I thought that Garcia was really, really fluid and smooth and flawless with. And I know it's just a ball handling drill, but I like seeing stuff like
Especially
that.
from big men.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching, when I covered baseball, I love watching infield practice,
Exactly.
right? So I love watching stuff like that. And I didn't have to see R.J. Davis do it because I knew he can.
Yeah, exactly.
But I wanted to see Armando do it. He looked pretty good. And I wanted to see Dawson Garcia do it. And you brought up Armando a second ago. They were working on some moves with the big men, getting the ball from the free throw line and exploding to the basket. Sean was working on that early on in practice.
Got some clips in the video.
Yeah, and Armando was just direct and fluid. Previously, it looked like he was carrying a little more. Looked like he lumbered. He was a little bulky getting to the basket.
More spring in his
He
step,
was
yeah.
more spring, straight to the rim. Of course, there's no defender. It's not anything like that, but it's still, you get to see it. It's clear that the fluidity is there. He's obviously worked on his body. He talked about it a few weeks ago. So we saw a hint of that today. So that was pretty cool as well.
Freshmen as well, real quickly, because we haven't talked about them,
Yeah.
Styles and DeMarco Dunn. I've seen Dunn before in person, but I think one of the biggest things that stood out, we were talking about in the stands a little bit. I know the game's changed a lot from 15, 20 years ago, but you got two kids right there that look the part already physically. You don't like guys who are like, okay, he's going to need a year in the weight room before he plays.
Yeah.
I don't think we saw that with those guys. You did talk about Dunn, I think, in particular, having a play where, all right, that shot he's not going to get
There were
away with
two.
in college. Yeah.
There were two.
So there's some growing pains in there, but physically, I think they look the part.
And one of them, he kind of let up about 5 feet away, where eventually you're going to want to make a little bit more of a beeline to the rim.
High school might work, but
Yeah, exactly. But that's
different
okay,
ballgame.
and that's great. That's second practice. Like I said, they played 41 days, and I don't think that they're banking on him to play 30 minutes a night for them to reach their goals this year. So it'll be everyone has their individual process, and the team has their process. That'll be his process. Styles, first guy that actually jumped out to me was Styles.
I remember you talking about him earlier.
Like, wow, he's fluid. He was doing a lot of stuff. In fact, there was an early drill when they were in their position groups where he was with the threes. Mccoy was out there. Mccoy looked very comfortable with the threes. He looked
100%.
comfortable guarding down on the blocks, that kind of thing. He played the 5 defensively a lot when Jay Huff got in foul trouble at UVA last year. So I think people are really going to like Justin McCoy is a Dean Smith kind of guy.
Oh, 100%.
But with Styles, he's more fluid than I thought. He had a nice looking shot, but he also was defending at the 4 some and strong. I mean, physically, he looks like he's 21 years old. He doesn't look like he just got here a few months ago. So I don't know what kind of game he has yet, but he looked the part today, and there were some nice things because people originally thought, boy, he can't play out of the wing. He's a lower block guy because he did a lot of that in high school. Well, we saw today as a guy who looked pretty comfortable playing away from the basket. We'll see in time how the skill set translates. It'll be there eventually. Don't really know where it is now. But it was good to see that he could step in and practice and play in a position where he doesn't look like he's totally out of sorts.
Definitely. Anything else you want to add before we wrap this one up? I know there's a lot to cover, but you know.
Well, I mean, it's just one practice, and I'm not going to read too much into it. We've been through this a million times before.
Yeah,
We're going to get a chance to see them again at late night here in a couple weeks, and I'm looking forward to seeing what this team comes. I just want to let everybody know they need to be very careful with how you evaluate this team and coming to any definitive mindsets about, okay, well, this is who they are. Whatever they are right now is going to be very different in February and March.
100%.
Because Hubert's figuring this out too. I was watching Hubert for a while when they were doing drills, and he was just kind of walking around the center of the court, almost like, okay, I'm the guy in the middle now walking around. I've got to get used to walking around. I've got to create my own cadence for walking around. And when I clap, and when I say something, and when I watch this group, and when I watch that group, it's all new to him. Because they've been doing stuff previously, and they had a few practices in the summer, but this is the real deal now.
Yeah, it's different.
You cannot waste a moment now. Because the season's going to be here before they know it. So he's going to figure out over time, hey, you know what? I'm not really comfortable doing things that way. I'm not getting as much out of it doing it that way. Maybe I should go back off and watch over here. I can see more. All these things are going to change and evolve over the course of time. And as that does, so will this team, and so will the players.
Yeah.
So whatever you guys see November 8th, it's going to be a lot different December 8th. It's going to be a lot different January 8th. We've done this before.
Yeah, it's a process, man. P-word.
Exactly. So that's what I take away from today. I can't wait to watch this team do something in March and just kind of think back to some of the notes I took today. And because there are some things that I wrote questions to myself that I'm not going to make public.
Yeah.
Because I want to see if those questions are answered later on. It's kind of my own personal way of covering a team, and it's one of the things that gets me jazzed up about stuff like this.
Definitely good stuff, AJ. A lot to dissect from today. Like I said, we'll have obviously this up on our YouTube channel. We'll have a little behind-the-scenes video from the first 20 minutes of practice up as well. Got the Get the thread that AJ's been posting from practice. We'll also have a piece.
Well,
on the front as
Brandon
well.
and Noah are going to post some observations.
Yep.
You're going to post some observations.
man.
That thread is going to be it's already
Yeah,
pretty good.
it'll be booming.
We've already got Datica's approval on the thread, so we're already halfway home.
Yeah, that's what really counts, guys. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. As always, make sure you guys like, share, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell as well so you know every single time we upload, and we'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks.
Thanks.